Every single day when the sun sets across America, 3 or 4 restaurants lock their doors, pack away their chairs, and turn off their neon signs forever. The lively main streets, historic town squares, and vibrant city avenues, once the beating heart of local culture, romantic date nights, and family celebrations, are quietly transforming into desolate stretches dominated by heavy for rent and space available signs. Walk through almost any downtown district today, and you will see the visible marks of a slow-motion collapse. But why are even massive, iconic dining chains and long-established independent neighborhood institutions collapsing so rapidly? The answer is far more complex than simply saying people have run out of money. In reality, millions of Americans still have disposable income, but they are participating in a quiet, collective boycott. Caught in a vice grip of staggering state sales taxes, skyrocketing property tax reassessments, insurance spikes, and relentlessly rising local business overheads, restaurant owners have been pushed into a corner like lambs waiting for a financial slaughter. America's restaurant industry isn't just navigating a temporary post-inflationary slump, its foundational business model is fracturing at the very core. Recent economic indicators reveal that an estimated 21% of food and beverage establishments are operating as zombie companies, businesses that are financially defunct, generating barely enough cash to pay interest on their debt, holding on purely by piling up "I owe us" to delay an inevitable collapse. Are we witnessing the permanent end of the classic dining out era in the United States? Let's trace this unfolding crisis together. There is a sobering, tragic truth unfolding across the country every single 24 hours. The culinary map of America loses multiple beloved establishments permanently. These aren't just cold, soulless statistics printed on a Bureau of Labor Statistics chart or a bankruptcy filing in a county courthouse. They represent stifled dreams, the sudden loss of livelihoods for line cooks, dishwashers, and waiting staff, and the permanent erasure of warm neighborhood spaces where generations of families built their fondest memories. Hundreds of thousands of dining venues are currently struggling inside an economic ecosystem that has cracked to its foundation. They are mockingly referred to in financial circles as zombie companies. Their dining room lights remain brightly lit, the neon open sign still flickers in the window, and servers still walk the floor taking orders with a forced smile, but their financial hearts stopped beating long ago. In essence, these owners are no longer in the business of serving hospitality and great food. They are in the full-time business of managing debt, juggling supplier invoices, and delaying bankruptcy day by day. A massive ticking time bomb lies beneath those empty, polished wooden dining tables. Look at the cruel paradox. The service industry, created specifically to bring people joy, human connection, and comfort, now ranks among the top sectors for business failures and restructuring across the nation. The restaurant segment alone has witnessed an alarming surge in sudden closures within recent fiscal quarters. Why is this happening? It's not because chefs suddenly forgot how to season a steak, nor because everyday Americans have lost their appetite for good food. It is because the fundamental value proposition of a sit-down meal has been completely hollowed out by relentless cost pressures from every conceivable angle. Running a successful, profitable restaurant in modern America has become an almost impossible mathematical equation. Have you ever paused to wonder, when a 30-year-old family diner in your hometown suddenly shuttered its doors, whether what was lost was just a laminated menu or a vital piece of the town's collective identity? Is this merely a ruthless market correction necessary for economic evolution, or the final death knell for the classic American Main Street culture we once took immense pride in? If you believe that the empty tables at your local bistro are caused entirely by consumers tightening their belts, you are missing a massive part of the picture. We need to look deeper into the other pocket, the one where government regulations, tax obligations, and municipal assessments quietly gut the margin out of every single plate that leaves the kitchen line. Let's perform an autopsy to identify one of the most silent, lethal perpetrators in this crisis. It is the overwhelming tax and operational structure that has turned the American hospitality industry into a cash cow being milked to the point of complete exhaustion. The compounding weight of state sales tax, county taxes, city business license fees, commercial property tax hikes, and mandatory health department fees creates a golden cage that tightens around restaurant profit margins until there is literally no room left to breathe. When emergency pandemic-era relief funds finally dried up and municipal property assessments were revalued upward across major metropolitan areas, business owners faced staggering operational jumps overnight. For a modest, independent casual eatery, these tax and fee adjustments translated into tens of thousands of dollars in unexpected annual overhead. For high-profile prime locations in major downtown corridors, those numbers surged by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Top chefs and multi-unit operators openly admit a bitter reality. Without the profit margins generated from secondary ventures, catering arms, packaged retail lines, or international licensing deals, their core brick-and-mortar locations in major U.S. cities simply could not survive on their own merits. Ironically, while local politicians and economic development boards give speeches calling for small business growth and downtown revitalization, they continue to impose the highest financial barriers on the very industry that acts as the largest private sector employer in the country. They aren't just taxing net profits, they are taxing the cash flow, the hope of reinvestment, and the passionate spirit of independent entrepreneurs. Faced with this financial abyss, a restaurant owner is left with only two catastrophic choices: raise menu prices significantly, pass the taxes on to the diner, watch the value proposition erode, and see longtime regulars stop coming through the door, or absorb the costs internally, keep prices steady, watch profit margins drop to zero or negative territory, and slowly bleed to death financially. Restaurant owners across the nation feel like sheep waiting to be slaughtered by rising fixed costs. Why does an industry that operates on razor-thin 3% to 5% margins have to bear an escalating tax and regulatory burden year after year? Why are policymakers eating the seeds of the industry rather than nurturing a wilting culinary landscape? Taxes and fees are heavy external burdens, but when you step through the swinging doors into the heat of the kitchen, an even more intimate, brutal crisis is stripping away the soul of American cooking. Imagine stepping into a high-end restaurant, anticipating the exquisite technique and creative passion of a seasoned head chef, only to discover the reality behind the kitchen pass: a chilling, stressful emptiness. The severe labor shortage that has swept across America's service sector over the past few years has left tens of thousands of line cook, prep cook, and dishwasher positions permanently unfilled. The experienced, passionate hands that once gave character, depth, and consistency to signature dishes have fled the industry for better hours, less stress, or gig economy flexibility. In their place, restaurant owners are left with constant turnover, extreme understaffing, and burnout. Why don't owners simply hire more people at higher wages? The answer lies directly in the balance sheet. Minimum wage laws have escalated rapidly across dozens of states and major municipalities, with mandatory wage floors reaching historic highs. While fair wages are essential, the speed of these increases, combined with skyrocketing employer-paid payroll taxes, workers' compensation insurance, and state-mandated healthcare requirements, has made labor the single largest and most unpredictable expense on a restaurant's profit and loss statement. Hospitality groups are reeling under the weight of these compounding labor costs. As a direct consequence, over 60% of independent operators report that they are actively reducing operating hours, closing 2 days a week, or cutting back front-of-house and back-of-house staff just to keep from drowning. In America today, finding, training, and retaining a dedicated, skilled kitchen staff has become harder than ever before. And when a kitchen runs out of skilled cooks and the budget can no longer support a full culinary team, the restaurant is forced to make a dangerous compromise: industrialization. Do you really think that intricate pasta sauce, that pre-portioned steak, or that gourmet soup you ordered at a trendy casual chain was crafted from scratch by a chef in the back? You might be sorely mistaken. To survive the labor crisis, even well-regarded mid-tier dining spots and major national chains have turned en masse to central production facilities and commercial food distributors. The food is pre-cooked, pre-packaged, frozen, or vacuum-sealed in plastic bags, shipped across state lines in refrigerated trucks, and delivered to the restaurant's back door. Once there, line workers simply snip open the bag, drop it into a hot water bath, or slide it into a high-speed commercial microwave, plating it with a sprinkle of fresh parsley to give the illusion of craftsmanship. We are paying premium fine dining prices for what is fundamentally an assembly line product. A restaurant operating without a true, dedicated culinary team is no different from a concert hall hosting an orchestra that plays along to pre-recorded audio tracks. It completely lacks the spontaneous rhythm, the nuance, and the genuine heart of the cook. How do you feel as a consumer knowing that you are paying $35 for what you assume is culinary artistry, but is in reality just a high-end, reheated TV dinner? Is our demand for instant operational convenience permanently erasing the rich tradition of scratch cooking in America? As traditional brick-and-mortar kitchens cool down due to a lack of staff and unsustainable overhead, a shadowy new empire is rising from the industrial parks, alleyways, and windowless warehouses of suburban America. Have you ever wondered where all those missing diners have gone, the ones who used to fill the booth seats, chat with the bartenders, and celebrate birthdays in local dining rooms? They haven't stopped eating, nor have they stopped spending money on food. Their dollars have quietly shifted into the dark zone of the food ecosystem, the era of ghost kitchens. Welcome to the age of invisible competitors. In major American cities, a staggering percentage of delivery app listings no longer correspond to a real physical restaurant that you can actually walk into. These operations have no storefronts, no elegant wooden tables, no soft lighting, and no smiling waitstaff to welcome you at the door. Instead, they operate out of bleak shipping containers, shared commercial facilities, or low-rent industrial warehouses miles away from prime commercial real estate. Why are ghost kitchens taking over the market with such terrifying speed? Because they are hyper-optimized, ruthless money-printing machines built for the digital age. Opening a traditional full-service restaurant with a dining room, bar, and full front-of-house staff routinely costs between $450,000 and $1 million plus in upfront capital. A ghost kitchen, by stark contrast, can be launched inside a pre-fitted commercial pod for a fraction of that cost, sometimes under $50,000. Their occupancy costs are reduced by up to 70%, and their labor expenses are slashed by 40% or more because front-of-house staff, hosts, bussers, and bartenders simply do not exist in their business model. With that overwhelming structural cost advantage, ghost kitchen operators leverage delivery algorithms on platforms like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub to dominate local search results, run aggressive digital promotions, and completely undercut the pricing of traditional sit-down restaurants. However, the true price we pay as a society is not recorded on the DoorDash checkout screen. The hyper-convenience of smartphone technology is transforming the rich, human ritual of sharing a meal into a cold, transactional logistics event. Cuisine, which throughout human history has served as the ultimate bridge between people, cultures, and neighbors, is being flattened into disposable plastic containers dropped on a front porch by a hurried driver. Furthermore, because many of these ghost kitchens prioritize maximum throughput and rapid prep times above all else, health experts and culinary critics frequently point out the heavy reliance on hyper-processed ingredients, excessive sodium, engineered fats, and artificial flavor enhancers designed to keep food palatable after a 30-minute bike ride in a thermal bag. Ghost kitchens operate like shadows. They leave no cultural footprint on the main street, offer no community gathering space, and sponsor no local Little League teams, yet they are systematically devouring the market share and foot traffic that kept traditional neighborhood spots alive. Traditional restaurant owners are no longer just competing against the bistro across the street on the quality of their hospitality or the freshness of their ingredients. They are battling lines of proprietary delivery code, optimized ad spends, and dark kitchens designed solely for scale. When you weigh the cold, frictionless convenience of an app against the warm, vibrant soul of a local dining room, which side will you choose when the ultimate price of that convenience is the complete disappearance of your neighborhood's physical culture? Beyond tax burdens, labor shortages, and digital competition, there is a much more immediate, visceral frustration that hits you the exact moment you open a menu today. The sinking feeling that you are being pickpocketed under the guise of an elevated dining experience. Welcome to the ubiquitous era of shrinkflation and drip pricing. You walk into a local spot you've visited for years, order your favorite burger or pasta dish, and pay a price that is 20% higher than it was a couple of years ago. But when the plate arrives at your table, the optical illusion collapses. The burger patty is noticeably thinner, the side of fries has been reduced to a tiny metal cup, and the portion of protein in your pasta has been trimmed by 15% to 20%. What is the inevitable result? You finish your meal feeling slightly hungry and distinctly unsatisfied, holding a check that is higher than any check you've ever paid at that establishment. Menu prices across the United States have climbed steadily, but the core issue isn't just the sticker price, it's that perceived value is plummeting in the exact opposite direction. Over 80% of American diners report feeling that eating out today represents a significantly worse value proposition than it did just a few years ago. Then comes the post-meal sticker shock, the rising trend of drip pricing and line item surcharges. You calculate your mental budget based on the prices listed on the menu, but when the final bill arrives in the leather check presenter, you are greeted by a confusing grocery list of added fees: a 3.5% kitchen wellness and staff healthcare surcharge, a 4% inflation mitigation fee, a mandatory 18% or 20% service charge added automatically regardless of party size, and a 3% non-cash adjustment fee if you dare to pay with a credit card. Many Americans feel intensely annoyed, uncomfortable, and manipulated by these surprise line items. Dining out in America, which used to be a seamless act of enjoyment and hospitality, now frequently feels like negotiating a complex commercial contract filled with hidden fine print and passive-aggressive disclaimers printed at the bottom of the page. Driven by sheer financial desperation, restaurants are also implementing aggressive cancellation policies. It is not uncommon for mid-tier restaurants in cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or Austin to demand a credit card upfront and charge a non-refundable $25 to $50 per person no-show fee if a reservation is canceled within 24 hours. While it is entirely true that empty tables from chronic no-shows cost the U.S. restaurant industry billions in lost revenue every year, slapping aggressive financial penalties and unexpected fees onto everyday consumers builds an emotional wall between the establishment and the community. A silent boycott is taking place across the country, not primarily because Americans have zero cash left in their checking accounts, but because they are simply tired of feeling taken advantage of every time they step foot in a dining room. Why has an experience that was once rooted in generosity, warmth, and celebration morphed into a stressful transaction defined by calculation, suspicion, and hidden fees? Inside this brutal economic storm, the damage is not being distributed equally. A cruel systemic polarization is underway across the American culinary landscape. The middle tier is being aggressively erased, making way for two completely opposing extremes. Have you noticed how the dining market today resembles an hourglass? The middle neck of the glass is pinching tight, crushing everyday mid-range restaurants, while expanding two distinct bulbs at the top and bottom. This is the great polarization of the U.S. hospitality sector. The top bulb consisting of ultra-luxury, exclusive fine dining, catered strictly to the top 1% of earners who are virtually immune to economic downturns. The bottom bulb made of fast food chains, drive-thrus, and fast casual concepts focused entirely on speed, extreme automation, and low baseline prices for the masses. And the crushed middle containing the warm, independent, sit-down family restaurants that form the backbone of American dining for generations. Even high-end luxury dining is walking a precarious tightrope. Fine dining establishments operate under extreme structural overhead referred to as negative operating leverage. To maintain Michelin star aspirations or top-tier prestige, they spend astronomical sums on rare seasonal ingredients, massive sommelier-curated wine cellars, custom tableware, and an enormous ratio of kitchen staff to guests. As their costs balloon, they are forced to push tasting menu prices into the stratospheric realm of $300 to $600 per person before tax and tip. Fine dining is rapidly transitioning from a special occasion treat for the middle class into an ultra-exclusive luxury status symbol reserved exclusively for corporate expense accounts and the ultra-wealthy. Meanwhile, the middle market, the neighborhood casual spots, the independent Italian trattorias, the local steakhouses, and the family-owned diners where middle-income families celebrated graduations, birthdays, and Friday nights is being utterly decimated. Mid-range casual dining is caught in a fatal trap. They are not luxurious or unique enough to justify a $150 dinner for two in the eyes of a budget-conscious consumer, and they are not fast, automated, or cheap enough to compete with Chipotle, McDonald's, or delivery apps. In almost any major U.S. metro area today, you can easily find a $350 multi-course luxury tasting menu or a $12 fast food combo meal at a drive-thru. But finding a high-quality, memorable sit-down dinner for a family of four that comes out under $100 has become as rare as finding a needle in a haystack. Adding fuel to the fire is the aggressive rise of high-end grocery store hot bars and meal kit services. Upscale grocery chains now offer gourmet, chef-crafted takeout meals, prime rotisserie meats, and artisanal sides at one-third the cost of a restaurant meal, with zero tax markups, no tip expectations, and no mandatory service charges. Grocery stores are successfully stealing up to 40% of traditional dining out occasions from busy families who still want good food without the financial theater of a restaurant bill. The middle class is being priced out of sit-down dining, and the middle market restaurants that serve them are going extinct. We are heading toward a stark future where dining out is no longer a casual weekly habit, but a calculated, rare expense, forcing consumers to choose between cold, efficient sustenance or exorbitant luxury. As operating conditions deteriorate in high-cost cities and heavily regulated states, we are witnessing a phenomenon known as culinary capital flight. Star chefs, seasoned restaurateurs, and experienced hospitality groups are quietly closing their flagship locations in traditional food capitals and fleeing to lower-cost, lower-tax states or international markets where business conditions are far more welcoming. When seasoned operators decide that running a restaurant in a major city is no longer worth the financial risk, the entire local ecosystem suffers a devastating loss of talent, creativity, and mentorship for the next generation of cooks. Industry forecasts paint a challenging picture for the remainder of the decade, with thousands of additional independent venues projected to face closure or distress. Furthermore, municipal health departments across several major jurisdictions report growing backlogs in routine safety inspections due to budget cuts and inspector shortages, creating hidden operational risks and eroding consumer confidence even further. So, what is the path forward for the restaurants that manage to survive this gauntlet? By 2027 and beyond, advanced automation and artificial intelligence will no longer be futuristic novelty items for quirky, tech-focused eateries. They will become mandatory tools for baseline economic survival. AI-driven inventory platforms will analyze weather patterns, local events, and historical sales data down to the minute to predict prep quantities, ensuring that not a single ounce of fresh produce or expensive protein goes to waste in the trash. Automated ordering kiosks and voice AI drive-thrus will take over front-of-house ordering, largely handling interactions through conversational AI interfaces and sleek touchscreens, reducing the need for multiple front-of-house cashiers and hosts. Robotic kitchen assistants like automated fry stations, robotic espresso bars, and automated dishwashing systems will take over high-volume, repetitive tasks, allowing a skeleton kitchen crew to manage volumes that previously required twice as many hands. This crisis is not a temporary economic dip that will magically bounce back to the way things used to be. It is a permanent structural reshaping of the American hospitality landscape. The U.S. restaurant industry right now is like a historical wooden ship navigating a violent storm with multiple leaks springing in its hull. Some captains are desperately trying to patch the leaks with cutting-edge technology and radical business pivots, while others are abandoning ship entirely. One thing is absolute: the waters around us have changed forever. Only those operators who possess the courage to radically re-engineer their business models, maintain complete financial transparency, and rebuild genuine, uncompromising trust with their customers will have any chance of staying afloat. If you were a restaurant owner standing in the eye of this storm today, would you choose to stay and fight to preserve the traditional, human-centric hospitality model against all odds? Or would you abandon the old ways and pivot to a hyper-automated, delivery-focused model built purely for survival? After stripping away all the layers of glamour, marketing, and nostalgia, we are left with a stark, undeniable truth. The American restaurant industry is undergoing a painful, structural transformation. Cuisine is never just about consuming calories to fuel our bodies. It is about culture, human connection, artistic expression, and community. When a neighborhood restaurant closes its doors and another "for rent" sign is taped to the window, it isn't just a business deal that failed. It is the death of a local gathering place, the end of an owner's lifelong dream, and the loss of a physical space where human beings used to sit across from one another, laugh, break bread, and feel a little less alone. Are you willing to pay a little bit extra and extend your grace to keep your local neighborhood spots alive, or has your patience with this broken system truly run out?